Hey everybody, it's Dave with No Chaser, and today's topic is about the crazy reality of alcohol tolerance for alcoholics. How it happens, why it happens, my experience with it, experience of others, and all that stuff. So, speaking of my experience, I remember when I was younger and going to AA meetings. I was going to them before I could legally drink because I had a problem way before that. Trying to get help, whatever. But I remember, every once in a while I hear some people tell some stories of some things that happened, and I was under the impression that blood alcohol level of zero point 0.4, not 0.04, but at zero point 0.4 was fatal. That you were on death's door at least, if you had that. And yet I'd hear some people talking about I had blown that and I was fine. I was driving and I got that as my DUI, and I did the field sobriety test perfectly fine. And I was just like, okay, what are we just lying in here now? Little did I know I would come to understand that that would be my reality. But anyways, I like to do research into this, and I have a morbid curiosity. So I had looked up, I've done it before, but I had looked up what was the highest blood alcohol content ever recorded. Now, the Guinness Book of World Records in 2024 said that their official one was a woman in California. Go ladies. she had blown a 1.3 something. A 1.3, like as in the 1 is before the decimal, which is 3 times higher than the fatal amount, supposedly. And she survived. That was what they said was the highest one that had ever survived, at least according to Guinness. Which, by the way, Guinness, what a weird world record to record, I guess, man. But I wonder if she was drinking Guinness. Yeah, terrible. But there was a bunch of others though that they said no, these were the highest ones. There was a guy in Poland who blew a 1.48, another one that was 1.6. There was I think a dude in Taiwan where it said it was 2.23. That one said no, there may have been contamination. But the crazy thing is, as I looked at these lists of all these other ones, it said survived. So like they didn't die. In fact, one of them I was like, oh, they died. That makes sense. It was no, they died in a car accident. Just they're crazy, right? Well, so here's kind of what just a brief overview of really how it happens when it comes to alcohol tolerance. It involves two things. It involves your liver and your brain. So when it comes to your liver, there's like metabolic tolerance, so to speak. This is not my stuff. This is much smarter scientist people that came up with this. Anyways, but the metabolic tolerance basically means that your liver is processing it more efficiently, so you feel the effects of it less as your liver processes it better, just because it's had lots of practice. Then compounded with that, you have your brain. So your brain actually gets used to the effects. It gets used to the intoxication and things that occur, and that's why you have all these cases of people that are super wasted, into like 0.2 and stuff, and they're just totally fine. And then I remember in high school, there's at a football game there, I heard about some. I mean, I was on the field, the bench, but no, there was some kid that I knew who was in the crowd who got busted for drinking, and he was sloshed, he was passing out, and it was like a 0.1 maybe. But to me that was high, because remember 0.4 was death, right? Even though I knew I was drinking a lot. But the thing when it comes to alcoholics, and going beyond the sciencey stuff, but just the reality of it is that it varies with people. Of course it will vary with how much you drink, with your size, your weight, your genetics, all that type of stuff. But if you're an alcoholic, it's going to go up. And this is when it goes from drinking to dependence. But in this same sense, what's really scary about it in a way, and this is what was scary for me, is that I had no idea how much it was really going up. I mean, I knew I was drinking more, and I knew I was drinking more frequently. But as far as my blood alcohol level, I'm not sitting around breathalyzing myself or anything like that. And so here, a quick story about how this came into a scary reality for me. Truth, I'll just be candid here. There was one time, this is in my dog days of drinking, and it was just a Tuesday with my girlfriend, and we were driving just to dinner after work. I'd been drinking that day, and I remember we got pulled over for, I don't know, something with my car, or, registration or whatnot. But I was like, ooh, I'd been drinking today. This is gonna be embarrassing, because if he pulls me out of the car just because he smells it, and that's what happened. And the whole time, I was thinking this will be embarrassing because I'm gonna blow something. I'm not gonna blow over the legal limit, which is 0.08, but I'll blow something, and that's gonna be embarrassing. But then, as I was doing the field sobriety test, fine, walking, talking, totally cogent, everything like that, I thought, well, maybe I will blow above it. Ooh, that was just as scary. But the whole idea was like, maybe I won't, maybe I will. I ended up blowing a 0.17. And I remember seeing that number, and I was like flummoxed. I was just like, wait, what? What? This is in my early 20s, but I'd been drinking for a while, but. And the weird thing was, I could see, obviously, just partaking in it, I could see how much I was drinking. But again, I wasn't sitting around ever breathalyzing myself or anything. I had never gotten in trouble with the law where I was breathalyzed or anything. So I'd never seen it before. So I just had no idea. Like, in my head, I was guessing like a 0.06 or a point. Oh man, it's going to be close to 0.08. And no, it was double that. And, that was a humiliating experience. One of the many through my drinking days, of course. But, again, I get back to this idea that, the way your body adjusts to it, there's so many times where, especially, you think about driving, and people look at it and they'll see, like, someone got pulled over for an aggravated DUI of a 0.3, and they'll be like, oh my God, were they just like sleeping at the wheel with their hands like, zip tied to the wheel or to something? How is that? But they would be shocked if they saw the field sobriety test where the person was totally, totally fine. I remember there was a time where I went to the hospital, and I was walking there, and I was talking with my dad, and he was waiting with me, and I didn't go there for the alcohol poisoning or anything like that. But they smelled it, so they tested my blood level, and it was a 0.36 or something, and my dad was shocked. He was like, wait, what? He thought it was 0.03, and he was shocked at that, and I was like, no, that's move a decimal. And, it was crazy to him, but if you're in the thick of it with alcoholism, you do realize this sort of the way that tolerance goes up. And the reason I talk so much about BAC is because drinking more, you start to put down more shots, more beers, and it doesn't really, the reality doesn't quite hit. At least for me, it didn't, because of just the way I felt. Like, I'm not falling down drunk. Sometimes blackouts started to happen, but that's the crazy thing is that, I don't know about you, but I think about in my drinking days where, like, when I was walking around fine at a 0.3 something, where were the times where I was like super wasted? Like, that's gonna obviously be above a 0.4. And remember, 0.4 was death's door. And not to say that lightly, but that's just how your body adapts. And I know with a lot of people, sometimes this doesn't occur. The trajectory of your drinking ability, or whatever you want to call it, the way the tolerance works is not always the same. But here's one thing, I was researching this, and I remember the University of Madison, Wisconsin, which I think the University of Wisconsin, Madison, was like the drinking university of America. At least it held the title, I think, a couple of years. But they were, they had this big study, and they did all this research into it, and hitting close to home. But they were essentially saying what the magic number was as far as your blood alcohol level, where you feel the effects of euphoria, and it's 0.05. And then anything you do above that, you're chasing kind of that feeling that you get. And as far as I say for alcoholics, dude, we blow way past that point, no pun intended, but we go way past that. And here's the other thing about tolerance that, like, it also, I didn't realize, stupidly, it should be obvious, but you don't think about, is that I drink all during the day, and then I don't know, I crash for a terrible 6-hour sleep, 4-hour sleep or something. But something silly mentally in my mind, I was just like, okay, we reset. It's like an Etch-a-Sketch. I woke up, new day. I'm at 0.00, right? No. I know there was times I woke up at point, 1, at least. And so then I'm starting at that, and then I drink on top of that. And that's how your tolerance gets even crazier, because you're not realizing you're already drinking on top of an intoxicated state. And the one last thing I'll say about this, as far as tolerance goes for alcoholics, is that, in that study I was talking about, the research thing, they said your alcohol tolerance actually can go down if you go a significant amount of time without drinking. You can see the effects of it going down. Now here's the thing, that may work for your normal dude or lady, dude, sorry, woman or dude, whatever, or teen or kid, but if you're an alcoholic, you've been drinking for a while and your tolerance has gone up, you can go a while, like I had before, doing recovery, and then go back to drinking, and it may go down. Your first time you drink and you relapse, you don't drink as much, and you get drunk not as much as you were. However, in all the experiences of others I've known, and all the testimonies of everybody I've known, and in my own experience and everything like that, when it comes to alcoholics, you may start that way, but you quickly get back up to where you're at, very quickly. Some people even say in recovery circles, you pick up where you left off, which is kind of what I did, to be honest. I didn't even have that, like the tolerance went down, or at least the drinking didn't go down, but I picked up where I left off, or it didn't take long to get back up to that. And then with my tolerance, it progressed. The drinking, it always goes up, needing more and more and more. When I talk about being normal at 0.3, I didn't get that after just, a year or two of heavy drinking. They were talking about the dog days of drinking all day, every day for years. And so, I think about that, where the tolerance, it becomes normalized just how much you really drink. It goes from shooters to a half pint to a handle or to a fifth to a handle, a 6-pack, 12-pack, case of beer, one bottle of wine, those little ones, to full bottles of wines, to multiple bottles of wines, all that type of stuff. And you may be like, ugh, as you realize how much you're drinking from that, but just how intoxicated you are may be the thing you may not realize. So I don't know. I think it's just an interesting topic referring to alcoholics, or even if you're just a heavy drinker. It's something to keep in mind. Anyways, if you like my videos, please subscribe, hit the notification bell if you want. In the description of my video, I have the link to a podcast that I co-host, Shoeless in South Dakota. I have a link for my book and a way that you can get it for free, and I have the confidential email if you ever want to send for a topic idea. So I've done that many times before. People brought up a topic, I was like, cool, I'll do a video about that, or just to talk or question or whatnot. Other than that, be well.